Next up on No Surprises.
That's the thing that makes me laugh about people being like, it's non-hierarchical. It's like, well, okay, you all didn't just meet on a playground and decide to form a company that you're going to then like play at. Someone brought you in. So there's inherently going to be a power dynamic. It's what do you do with that dynamic in the company to make people feel like they are active participants instead of like cogs, you know?
Hi, I'm Mallory Ulazik.
And I'm Kelsey Gilbert-Carling.
And this is No Surprises, a look inside the ambitious, joyful, and occasionally terrifying journey of running a web design agency.
Sure. That is what we are here to do today with the fabulous Raina Abigail Levine. I'm
Hi,
pointing
everyone.
this way because that's where you are for me, but I realize who knows where you will be.
I could be anywhere.
You could be anywhere.
Could be anywhere.
She's anywhere. She's
Of course.
everywhere.
Special guest star, the fabulous, darling, dozing, sunbeam, sleeper Daisy.
Daisy.
It's Daisy.
Daisy's
We
must
love
come
our
in the sun.
Yeah.
What do you want to
Daisy's
talk about today?
Yeah. Let's talk about roles and responsibilities.
Yes.
There, at first when I was getting ready for this episode, I was like, I feel like we've covered this before. I'm not really sure like what we're going to talk about. And then like during our prep call just now, I felt like we hit on some things that are really relevant to our community. And I'm excited to dig into those. Just to sort of start us off, I feel like we should just talk about the overall structure. What are the roles in Week of the Website? We've talked about devs and PMs, but not really anything beyond that.
Yeah, let's talk about it. We have a little bit of a different structure at Week of the Website. So we have a mostly contracting model that we employ, and it's had only benefits since we've been doing this for probably about 5 years. It allowed us to really be nimble with the seasonality of our work, because if you run a creative studio of any kind, you know that it can be a bit of feast or famine, which is a little bit scary. And so when you don't have like a clear idea of like how much work you're truly going to be getting, it's best to just have contractors on hand that are available to do their own work. But most of our developers and project managers are contractors. They're the ones that work on the day-to-day projects. And most of that actually occurs outside of the overall agency. So agency members very rarely actually work on these projects anymore. And so those are our two biggest roles from the project side. Moving up or around, if you will, we have the overall agency that supports them. And that is Kelsey, myself, Katie. We have Janine and Sam. So Sam is our agency assistant. She helps us stay on track and get the job done from the couple of different areas of work that the agency works on. We have Janine, who runs our support desk. That
Beautifully
goes in and out of chaos depending on how it is. Katie, our operations manager. Katie runs our day-to-day operations. So she's managing project assignments, a lot of our organizational tools that keep us like on track and like knowing when projects are happening, what payouts are, all of that fun stuff. And then you have Kelsey and I manage the financial side of things. So here I am doing a bunch of tax work right now, but also projections, trends, all of that fun data work, working with our accountant, good stuff there. And then our marketing team, which also consists of a lot of contractors like you, Raina. So our marketing team is very new this year. And so we're building that. So we have a producer, aka Raina. We have Sam helps out on that team. We have Molly, who is our editor and on staff copywriter, who helps us do a lot of that copywriting work. And then we also have Alex, one of our developers, who also comes in and does a lot of design work. She's sort of our marketing team designer. So that's the marketing team. Kelsey, you can talk a little bit about your role.
Yeah, I mean, I try to valiantly lead our development team and really lead our business development and sales side of things. And then operations, keeping things moving from a technical perspective. And it's interesting because I think Mal and I, our roles have really evolved quite a bit over the last, forever, but particularly the last couple of years, because I think we've touched on this in other episodes, but she and I used to be really big parts of these projects, right? Like she was PMing things until pretty recently. I was building websites until September of 2021. And, since then we've had to have some kind of like shifts around and in terms of like what we're taking charge of. And so many of the roles that are now a part of our team are new even within this year. So it's been like very interesting to see how things can shift and grow from beyond just like what myself, Mal, and Katie are taking care of.
Mm-hmm. And then additionally, you also partner with a couple of agencies to do some work that you don't feel as called to do, or work that you feel like other partners are just really efficient at.
Yeah,
we partner with
Launch Happy to do they execute SEO for each of our projects. And then sometimes we have other people fill in, or not fill in, but like fit into projects in the way that clients seem to be supported. So we work with a lot of our pro partners to like do graphic design or branding design before our clients work with us. Or sometimes we'll pull Molly in and she'll help clients as they pull together their copy for their sites. That's something we've been doing increasingly. Like clients will say, oh, you know what, I need like a little bit of help with my outline. And we'll be like, great, we'll just budget in a couple of extra hours with our copy team, and they can kind of support you through that. And I think it's been really helpful. Like that is kind of a newer role and responsibility that we've started flexing. And, I don't think we'll ever want to be like an all-in-one agency, but it's been cool to be able to like add in that additional support.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of an all-in-one agency. I just think it's very hard to pull off.
Yeah.
I think it's much better if you focus on what you're good at and outsource on what you're not.
Yeah, agreed. You can't be good at everything.
Yeah. And this structure that you built makes it so that you can be agile.
And this structure was not something where we were like, let's put it on paper and it'll just happen. I think it actually happens the opposite way. You kind of consider what your resources are and you start slotting things in based on what makes sense in people's skill sets, right? So you kind of like reverse engineer it. So it works a little bit more organically instead of being like, here, you go learn this new thing. I'm not going to tell anyone to go learn something new. I will go learn something new. Like marketing was never really, I've been working on marketing stuff since probably like 10 years, but like never in a serious way. And so I was like, well, I'll go figure this out. But like, that's not something we're going to do with our team members.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I've been part of other agencies as a contractor working for myself for almost a decade. And sometimes there's this experience with agencies, in particular lately, I feel like, where they set out to have this really intentional no hierarchy system where there's very either little or no management, or the structure of who's in charge where just doesn't exist. And it often just devolves. The work devolves, the culture of the agency devolves into this sort of Lord of the Flies situation. And it just becomes like an interpersonal minefield very, very quickly. You have it seemingly like avoided that Lord of the Flies situation, but you have this sort of flat hierarchy, and I'm like wondering, like, is there a secret? Like, what do you think about that structure for startups in general?
I'm chuckling because like we just had a conversation about this in our prep conversation. And yet when you were describing like a Lord of the Flies type interpersonal minefield, my skin like physically crawled. I felt this like feeling of just like, ooh, like I don't I don't have the personality to handle that kind of thing. And you know,
But we're not in the Lord of the Flies between the two of us. I feel like you and I are like, who does this?
yeah, I mean, I think we're more apt to be like, I think we try to be like, hold ourselves as accountable as possible. But yeah, I mean, I think we've set out with some like really specific goals for the experience of our work. You know, we've talked about this on other episodes, like what we do is as important, if not less important, than how we do it. And so I think creating a working environment that feels very respectful, understanding, creative, collaborative is very important to us. Only recently, because we are now no longer on projects, have we moved, the hierarchy has like shifted a little bit, in the sense that everyone who works with us is going to know Mallory and I own the company, but we try really hard to give folks, you know, the autonomy to own each of their roles, to work with us instead of for us. And I think we both try to be pretty cognizant of the fact that, like, whether we want to or not, the people on our team are going to see us in like a leadership position because we're the ones doing the hiring. Like there's going to, that's the thing that makes me laugh about people being like, it's non-hierarchical. It's like, well, okay, you all didn't just meet on a playground and decide to form a company that you're going to then like play at. Someone brought you in. So there's inherently going to be a power dynamic. It's what do you do with that dynamic in the company to make people feel like they are active participants instead of like cogs, you know?
Mm.
I have so many feelings on this.
So many feelings.
Well, I inherently distrust power dynamics, which is something much deeper and has much more to do with me as a human being than it does with this company. But I think what we're touching on is this way that we've kind of back-ended into this non-hierarchical format where there is hierarchy. And it's really semantics. It's the way that the world and the industry, work industries at large, talk about organizational structures, because this is the way we've been talking about it for a while. It's the way it makes sense. We backed into it because, like we were talking at the beginning of the episode, we've had this contractor model. We adopted that because we knew that our work was seasonal. We had other projects, we had other arms of our company that we were working on. And so we knew we just couldn't be the most reliable source of income for people. And we wanted to be really upfront about that. And so we were like, you know, there might be months where we can't give you projects. We cannot promise anything. But what ended up happening was, you know, I think this is like kind of, you know, it's similar to running an agency, which is a little bit different than running like a corporate structure, because there is a little bit more of this, like everyone's kind of working on a horizontal axis versus a vertical axis. But given what we do and this model that we've used, we have kind of backed our way into this non-hierarchical system where there very much is structure. I am very pro structure, even though I am goat rodeo, right? I am inherently a little bit chaotic, but it's always with the best of intentions, because without structure, you cannot focus and you cannot be successful. You know, it's like having the idea, but not having the follow through. The idea is 5%, not even. the follow through is everything. How you follow through is everything. And so we have never really like openly discussed the fact that we just don't really have much of a hierarchy. But what we have noticed is that people come to the table in a much different way than when they do as an employee. Now we still have employees, you know, Katie is on our payroll. We've got, you know, that's just the way it is. But we need someone regular to be running the day to day, because we can't always do that. We're out doing other things to try and grow the business. So we sort of backed our way into this. It allows people to show up in a way that gives them a little bit more agency. So people are a little bit more willing and daring to come forward with their ideas and feedback when they're sort of on this contracting level versus being an employee. And it, I believe, really contributed to the success not only of our project, but also the agency as a whole. So we get really good regular feedback from people. And a lot of the reason is because we still do have this sort of mentality of structure and management at play within the agency as a whole. And I think that there's management and then there's bossing. And management is difficult. And I think I've come from a corporate environment for like a year, right? So I like got like the briefest of tastes of it. And when I tasted, I did not like, because I found a lot of managers that were being put in those roles were people that weren't necessarily performing on a different level. And so companies will just slot them in management roles. I don't know. There might be a couple people who know about this, but it's very true. And so what you get is kind of throwaway management. You don't get someone who's actively trying to set people up for success. And that makes it really hard to focus and succeed. People need goals, they need benchmarks, they need structure, they need guidance. Especially if they're working for your company, it means that you set the tone. That is my job, that's Kelsey's job. If we're not doing that, then it is absolute chaos. Then it is Lord of the Flies. Then you get into situations where the dynamics just spin out because there is nothing anchoring the team to a goal. It's just impossible. So having that sort of guidance is really, really important, even if you don't have much of a hierarchical system.
Yeah, and I feel like we've ended up flowing into more like leadership and mentorship relationships with a lot of our team members because, you know, I know they're going to take it is the nature of contracting is that they're going to take projects outside of Week of the Website. We're going to send them referrals that aren't a fit for our process. And so some of the most rewarding points of our like partnership with these different contractors has been talking to them about like who they are and what their skill set is like in its entirety beyond just what we do at Week of the Website. And I think it's fascinating because like a lot of what our contractor devs do is still very mysterious to me. I rarely get to see their projects outside of Week of the Website. I would love for them to be showing more of them because we don't really have a very I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of like we have like an open relationship, you know, we're like, I'm happy for you, like whatever you need. But you know, Zach and I have been watching this show called The Parent Test on Fox, which is like a thing. It's interesting. It's basically like a competition between parenting styles, and they like have these different families, and then they put their kids in these different scenarios, like trying new foods at a restaurant or jumping off of a high like diving board to see how the kids react in the context of these different parenting styles. And spoiler alert, one of the most successful ones has been this they call it new age parenting, but I don't know that that's like a really good descriptor. But essentially these parents have set up an environment where they're like really encouraging of their kids to be themselves, to try things. They have like a rope swing in their kitchen, and they, you know, like probably have like a little bit more of a like rambly, you know, wild home life than most people would expect. But I think the thing that has made them be the most successful is that they give their kids a lot of freedom. They really feed their kids creativity for new things and trying things they've never done before. But they also have very clear boundaries as parents where they're like, I want you to see a lot and do a lot and experience a lot and try new things. But also, these are our non-negotiables as a family. And the kids, like, they get that because I mean, every relationship needs boundaries and clarity. And I think that's where these like non-hierarchical structures can really go wrong because people misconstrue not having a hierarchy for not having boundaries. And like boundaries and rules are different. You know, we have boundaries around what's the PM's job and what's the developer's job, what's the sales team's job, and what's the client's job. Because unless people know what their jobs are, they're not going to be able to be successful. And they're going to feel this like sense of discomfort because they don't know where their responsibilities begin and end. And I think like our biggest job as the agency side team is to keep those boundaries around everybody's roles really clear so that they can be creative within the bounds of that set of responsibilities. You know, we say like, we don't need our clients to be creative about filling out an outline. We don't need them to be creative about filling out, you know, picking times for their calls. Likewise, for our team, we don't need them expending mental energy trying to figure out, is this my job or is this the PM's job or is this Kelsey and Katie's job? The thing that we do that is like the most structured is defining those and defining the process. And I think like that's very transferable from how we work with our clients to how we work with our teams. We want to take away the parts where things get messy and difficult so that they can focus their energy and attention to like create moments of creative genius. You can't do that if you're like warring with your coworker over who's in charge of what or who was supposed to send the email. It's just not worth it. And I think like Mal and I even have conversations about this between ourselves. We're always trying to kind of clarify like what's the boundary between your job and my job so that we're not stepping on each other's toes, but we also feel like we have the ability to give each other input into what's going on. I think if you're fighting over a boundary line, there's no space for you to give input to someone else who's working on a different problem, because then it feels like, oh, is this your thing now? Or is this my thing now? Am I encroaching? Are you stepping into my territory? Like, that is really messy. And I don't like that kind of like emotional entanglement. So I think there's, you know, I think this is another scenario in which Mallory's and I personalities have like an interesting tension between them, because not a big authority fan, really likes to shake things up. Meanwhile, I'm over here constantly trying to like put order to chaos. And so I think what we've ended up with is this agency.
I definitely have a lot of order in me though. I mean, there's a lot of structure and there's a lot of structure in what goes on. So
of course, Mel, but also like, and there are parts of me that are very chaotic. But I think when it comes to like, you need that push and pull. And at different points and in different parts of our work, you and I each will take like a different tact on that. But I think we are very aligned in terms of understanding the value of that structure and those boundaries for our team so that everyone can just like breathe and not have to worry about the interpersonal dynamics of figuring that stuff out.
Sure. I recently produced a program about the future of work for a consulting agency in New York. And one of the things that they predicted was that sort of by 2060s, like everyone's going to be a contractor at some point. There'll be less employees and there'll be more contractors for a more diversified workforce. And they even talked about like the possibility of everything just being project-based even within these larger companies, where you'll have an app where contractors or employees will come in and be swipe and be like, yes, I want to work on that project. No, I don't want to work on that project. So it seems like sort of what you built fits into that future of work model. what do you think about the future of work, and like what are some of the benefits that you've seen working specifically with contractors?
Rena, it's so interesting that you brought that up. I did not know that. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that is completely due to the fact that we are, what do they call it? The Great Resignation plus the recession, all of these things happening. People want control over their lives. When you are an employee of a company, it's really difficult to have control over your life, but then also move towards your own personal goals, right? You're working through the goals of another person's company. And there are lots of people who are like, that's it, and that's what I want to do. And great. But a lot of folks out there are wanting to find more purpose in the work that they're doing. And being a contractor allows you to pick and choose the work you do instead of being told what to do. And I think that that is a huge driving force of the workforce right now. That's the general feeling. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that they're projecting a lot of people to move to contracting, because we've already seen that. It's already happening. We see that a lot within our own work, because there's a lot of people who are coming to us who are spinning off their own work into their own agencies, own contracting work, all of that stuff. I think that it's going to shake up the structure of a lot of these mega companies. It's gonna be harder to hold on to good talent unless you have a company structure that supports contracting. And I think what there stands to gain from a company level from hiring contractors is endless, but it becomes the company's job, right? Now we're asking the companies to do due diligence instead of just hiring. And a lot of people might not know what their due diligence is, because it all revolves around self-awareness. We have to have self-awareness as a company to be able to hire correctly. That comes through positioning workshops, that comes from just like inherently knowing like what type of personality type your company needs to hire for. There are different personality types for different types of jobs. It's a super dynamic model, but if you can wrap your head around it, you will be getting the best work from the best people, because they will be buying into the work you're doing. They will be providing their own specific flair. And I think that the one thing that companies need to relinquish in order for this to be successful is that control aspect, right? People want the control, and so we will need to relinquish some of it. We're already doing that at We Do the Website. We encourage that. We aren't trying to control a project as much as we give guidelines and then space. So guidelines and deliverables that help people stay on track, but then the space within that to do what they do best, which is why we like match make our projects to contractors themselves. We know that some contractors will succeed in certain types of projects. So you really have to have company self-awareness down pat in order for this to be successful. But if you can nail it, you are on the receiving end of something that we've been experiencing for the last 5 years, which is you get way better work, you get way better outcome, and the clients are much more happy.
I think the challenging part of that transition though is like, this is not the reasons why we do this, I think are really different than why a big corporation would do this though, right? Like from my perspective,
two different apples and oranges.
Totally different. But like, I don't think if we think about this as like a future of work movement, I don't think that that is anything other than kind of like a libertarian like dream scenario where they don't have to then pay for healthcare and we don't have to pay for parental leave. So like, I don't think that any of that is going to be possible unless there's like structural change to how like work is so coupled to people's ability to live their lives right now, like from an insurance and healthcare perspective. So I'm always very cautious because I think that there's so much incredible potential in working with people on per project scenarios. But, I think if we're being like totally straightforward and honest, we would love to be able to have, in my dream world, I would love to be able to have more people be full-time with our company, because I want to feel like we're able to kind of work with the whole person more than we can right now. But like, it's very difficult to do that from the perspective of providing the benefits that we would want to be able to provide for full-time team members. So I think that's like a very interesting question, because there's, the productivity, project quality, like the ability to turn out amazing work, but then also like, what's our responsibility to the people who work with us as team members? And I think the way that we've been able to navigate that is just like being pretty open and honest with our team about like, this is what we do. This is how many projects we book. This is how much they cost. Like, if you do math, it's not hard to figure out how much money everybody involved is making. But I think that is also like an interesting dynamic and a role and a set of responsibilities that we have as an agency team too, to understand like, how do we work with clients, work with contractors to create the best outcome, while also understanding like the boundaries of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like one of the things that makes you successful is specifically like the hiring practices that you have around hiring contractors. Like, you have to find the right fit and the people with the right personality structures in order for them to like work well within the team, be accountable for the work that they're executing, and like do good work.
Yeah. I hate saying no to people in that process. It's like the biggest test to my like own ethos, because I want to say yes to everyone and everything, but also like what we do is really specific. And I know we're going to ask something really intense out of our team members. And I want to make sure that it's not something that's going to push someone to like work in a way they're not comfortable with. There was someone that we were interviewing who was like wonderful and incredibly talented, but there was just something in me that said like, we're not going to be able to fulfill what this person is looking for. And it was very difficult to say no. And they, rightfully kind of challenged and asked for more information about it. But it's just like, sometimes I can't explain to people why or what exactly makes someone an ideal team member of Week of the Website. But all I know is we try to be really, really truthful and fair and honest about what this requires and what we're able to give in return for that. And like, try to treat that with as much dignity as we can, to be like, this is what we can pay you. This is how the work goes. This is what we're going to ask of you. Do you want to be a part of this relationship?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We've talked a lot about the different roles and responsibilities that exist within the agency. I want to sort of cover off by talking a little bit about the role and responsibility that Week of the Website has to the larger Squarespace community.
That's an interesting question. I feel like we're like in our infancy in finding a place within the Squarespace community. I think we have like friends who are, with other companies who do Squarespace things. Obviously, we work with David at Launch Happy, Catherine at Creme Brands. Like, there's so many people. There's so many people in the Squarespace world that we feel like connected to and have this kinship with. I will say, like, we really haven't positioned ourselves as like Squarespace community members really much until this year. We spoke at their Circle conference, and it was really, really cool, but we haven't been like very active on the, Circle community message boards and things like that, because I think we're really just barely coming into this idea that we've been working on this platform for a long time. And I know that seems silly, but Mallory and I don't think I don't think we have an influencer spirit. Like right, Mal, would you agree? Like, I don't feel like this is kind of our first foray into being like actively promotional. So I think mostly we try to be useful, try to be helpful, try to like share projects with other talented developers when they're not a fit for us, or be willing to have those kinds of like mentorship and networking conversations. And I think we both hope to grow more into a role in the Squarespace community. I'm just curious to see where that's gonna kind of organically go.
I think of it less as influencing, again, semantics. This is where I feel like semantics can slow you down. I think of us more as like sort of in this mentorship space, because that feels a little bit more authentic to who we are. And I do think we are already there. I think we have more influence in that sphere than maybe we realize. A lot of it comes down to the fact that we've always been really big on information share. We've really been pro, like spreading around the good, if you will, whether that's information or work or whatever that may be. And it comes down to the fact that we've always been team players, but we also just like generally give a shit about things, and wanting things to be, a positive experience versus the alternative. And so I think that we are uniquely positioned to be in this place of, well, we've been around for a while. We've been doing this for a while. We've been around since the very early ages of Squarespace. Like when we were speaking at that conference, they did a thing where it was like, who's been building on the platform the longest, sit down, and they kept going up in years. They got around to like 8-9 years. And then here we are, we're standing with like 2 other people in this big room. And you don't realize what you have until you see it within the context. And I think that was the first time we got a taste of the context in which we work in. And that was really interesting. But I think we have so much more to give to this whole world. And it kind of starts with our Squarespace community, and then branches out to our industry. So
I think right now,
fascinating. I think it's really interesting.
Well, I think right now we're serving our clients very well in terms of like enabling them with, access to our team and resources to use their site. I think we aspire to take that a step further for folks who aren't necessarily going to be our clients, but still want to build on the platform. And so not to be too mysterious about it, but I do think that that's something like on the horizon for us. Is we know that not everybody is interested in having design professionals build a website for them, but our team has accumulated like so much knowledge around this and has used this platform so intensively. Like for me, one of the big questions is, how do we take everything that we know as a team and how do we use that to help people who want to use Squarespace and need some community to like interact with, but also how do we take that knowledge and help our clients be in community with each other, because they all share the experience of having worked with us, and also they have a Squarespace website now. So I think that's one of the questions that we're asking ourselves this year, of kind of what role do we want to play for our clients going forward, for people who aren't necessarily going to be clients but want to be a part of the week of the website-osphere. It's an interesting question.
Great. We're looking forward. Popcorn for the next entertaining bit.
Oh man.
Is there anything else that either of you want to say about roles or responsibilities?
I just thought we were going to talk more about bread. Like I thought we were going to do like
bread rolls.
Bread rolls.
I thought this was going to be more of like a baking show.
Yeah. I think to sum it all up, I think this is like more of a direct call to anyone who's in any sort of leadership role, but it's like, take it seriously. Put a lot of thought into it, put a lot of time into it. The more effort you put into it, the more I've experienced that you gain from it. And that goes from having relationships to your team members and knowing what's going on in their lives, and then also helping them succeed and caring about their success both with your work and outside your work. It's not like so much of a tactic. I don't believe in tactics. It's just like, be a good human, care. And I think if you are in this role of management and putting some structure behind it, it makes all the difference.
How about you, Raina? Do you have any closing thoughts on roles and responsibilities?
I love a good yeasted roll. First of all, I just would like to say that.
Amazing.
Same. Love that.
Same.
Don't even get me started on cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. Seriously.
Love a cinnamon roll.
Love a good one.
There's actually a cinnamon roll shop around the corner from our office, and I've only had, it's called
Cinnaholic.
I was going through my synesthesia, no, it was like it's sin in the box. And I've only had it once. What was it?
Sin in a box. Sin in a box is a great name.
It's a great name.
Free idea. Yeah. You can make your own cinnamon roll there. I've only ever had their plain ones. They're very good, but I went once and I won't go back because I feel like if I open the door, if I crack it open any.
Yeah. Don't crack it open any farther. Don't let that light in. Yeah. This has been great. Thanks so much for having Daisy and I on.
Always.
I think next week we're talking about joy.
We are talking about joy next week.
Love to talk about joy.
Yeah.
Yay. Joy is everything.
Joy is what we live and die for. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So you can subscribe to No Surprises where you get your podcast. You can also watch this delightfulness on our YouTube channel. Our website is weekofthewebsite.com. And you also can please follow us on Instagram at Week of the Website.
What she said is all true.
Correct.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.